our tradition. If we may recite the full weight test of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
As a Lancaster Township supervisor, this first question is very important to me. What do you plan to do to improve intergovernmental cooperation?
Thank you very much, and thanks to Lancaster Rotary for having us this afternoon. Two things to improve intergovernment cooperation that are important to me. First, it starts with leadership, and that means that it starts in the role of the mayor. And prioritizing the city, absolutely yes. But it's also very important that we have to recognize we're all in this together. There are no boundaries, walled cities. We as residents and people who are going about their daily lives don't necessarily think about municipal boundaries in the same way that local government leaders and employees do every day. And so the boundaries don't matter so much in terms of issues related to poverty, transportation, stormwater improvements, things like that. And so part of the purpose of thinking about intergovernment cooperation is how can we do better for all of the residents. We are so privileged to have Lancaster City, I believe, because it is the arts and cultural center. It is the seat of county government in Lancaster County. And I'm also really proud to be a Lancaster County resident as well as a city resident. So some of the ways that the city has been working to beyond its borders are creating an active transportation plan in conjunction with Lancaster County. This is an opportunity for us to think about bike paths and pedestrian trails and things like that that is improving the health and well-being of our entire community. Shared services with county government and grants that are supporting not only efforts here in Lancaster City related to lead poisoning prevention, but also in the county. So these are just some of the issues that we've worked on together, but I'm looking forward to building those relationships, improving communication, and finding common sense ways that we can tackle the issues that affect us all.
Thank you, Norman.
Good evening, or good afternoon. I would like to thank the Rotary Club for hosting this event today, and especially for the work that you do day in and day out. We have been recipients of the philanthropic work that you have been doing, especially with the tiny homes program that we have in the city of Lancaster to address homeless. I know that Sarah and Paul Thibault has been amazing individuals in my own church as a Juan Bautista, and that's why we have a plaza, community center in the poorest neighborhood of Lancaster County. So thank you for the work that you do day in and day out. As the youngest of 5 boys in my house, I know what collaboration is all about, because I needed that in order for me to survive the punchings of my brothers on a daily basis. But there's an opportunity here that we have working together not only with the County of Lancaster, but also with the state and federal government. But I would like to look into 3 main issues that I think are important for the city of Lancaster and the county in order for us to work together. First is poverty. If you go to Lancaster City, the southeast of the city, we have the poorest neighborhood in the entire Lancaster County. And we can no longer ignore that. We have to pay attention to that issue because at the end of the day, it will impact the more than 500,000 Lancastrians that live in Lancaster County. The second issue is homelessness. That is an issue that, even though it is strong in the city, you and I know that many of the individuals that are homeless in the city, they are not from Lancaster City, they come from all over the county. And we need to work together to make sure that we are addressing that issue. And finally, the third issue is tourism. We get about 30 million tourists a year in Lancaster County. I want some of them to come to Lancaster City, and we just get close to 1 million. And that is an injection of economic dollars that we can work together that will impact Lancaster City and the small business development in Lancaster.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you everyone for being here. I see a number of people who I know, some Meals on Wheels volunteers, some from church, other groups. Every person who I know in this room are some of the finest people I know, and I think that's probably a reflection on everyone who I don't know as well. You are people who are leaders in the community, not just as sort of business people, but as civic-minded people. I really enjoyed this, and I think that what behind me here is the banner. It talks about integrity, And I think that's what we need to begin to think about when it comes to how government works in general. You know, these questions are the type of questions that you need to be guided by. We can get distracted by one individual project because it's really big and it's exciting, or we can get distracted by a series of initiatives. And we need to make sure that we're continually coming back to points of integrity and making sure that the whole community is being cared for. When it comes to the specifics of this question around intergovernmental cooperation, that's a large part of it too. You know, we know that there are funding imbalances in various ways. The city hosts the county government buildings. As a result, that and other nonprofits who serve the whole community end up having Lancaster City with 30% of its property tax exempt. That impacts the school's funding. That impacts other opportunities for the city to develop equitably. It makes us make difficult decisions. One of the things that has impacted in the last half decade is the policing in Lancaster Township, moving from Lancaster City Police. And that's the area that I think that we should be taking a look at, is in what ways do our shared resources that we have, or do our resources as a city become shared ones? Right now we service a lot of water into parts of the township and the county. And we need to think about, as you struggle in the township areas to find volunteer firefighters, are we able to come to a financial arrangement that helps us increase our fire service and also make sure that you all are protected?
Thank you. We'll move on to the second question, and we're going to start with you, Norman. With regard to city staffing, what new departments do you plan to create? What existing departments do you plan to consolidate or reduce?
You know, I think that creating a new department for the city of Lancaster is not in the best interest, especially in the economic situations that we are facing, not only locally, but also at the national level. But one thing that we would like to propose is that we have an Office of Communications and Press. The city has been doing great things, and not only city government, but also the amazing institutions that we have in the city of Lancaster. But we haven't been able to be the ambassadors of that message. So I think by establishing the Office of Communication and Press within the mayor's office, we will be able to change some dynamics about perception about the city. You know, there are many places that I go around the county, and individuals feel that they are not safe in the city of Lancaster. And I walk everywhere, anywhere in the city of Lancaster, I feel extremely safe. So we have to change those perception, and the only way to do so is by having an open line of communication, not only with the 60,000 city residents, but also with the 500 plus thousand neighbors that we have in Lancaster County.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I think that creating often just becomes bureaucratic adding. You need to look at what already exists and find your efficiencies that exist within there. So are there ways of managing the city and the city staff in more efficient or updated ways? For me, the biggest problem with our present staffing is probably around housing. The housing inspectors, there's only 8 of them for the entire city, and that's clearly not enough. So we need to think, okay, well, we know that we need to inspect the rental homes, we need to make sure that people are safe. So how do we do that with limited resources? Well, one of the things is, we can take a look at, again, the fire department is one that is constantly in and out of homes for other purposes. Are they able to have access to the databases and other things to flag places that should be checked? How do we use technologies? At Meals on Wheels, I was just recently asked to speak at the national conference on how do you help a Meals on Wheels organization enter into the 21st century. When I got there 3 years ago, the first thing I did was look at our technology, which was in disarray without any sort of theory of a process. We had one piece of software on one desktop that was only enabled to be accessed by one user. That maintained all of our routes, all of our billing, everything. So I went to a friend of mine and I asked him if he would be interested in creating a software. He created the software. Now every client receives a bill. And now every staff member can sign into this program from their own home, work remotely. It allows us to be more efficient. And so we need to do the same thing within the housing inspection. We need to say, let us begin to have a software that makes sure that we are tracking what places are not keeping up with the regulations and what are, inspecting those who are repeat offenders more frequently and those who are good landlords and more infrequently.
Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. So I'm so glad that Kevin talked about efficiencies and using technology, because right now the city is in the process of implementing a whole new system that is going to allow those efficiencies to happen and cross interdepartmental communication about properties, whether that means that we need to address something related to sewer water lines, housing inspection, or fire code safety. So that process is underway right now. And this is the idea of staffing. We've come out of 10 years of this economic crisis. Staffing levels have stayed flat in the city or have declined a little bit over the last 10 years because we have had to consistently do more with less. And so I don't see the creation of any new departments. What I do see is an elevation of the staff that are working and are very focused on neighborhoods, because that is my #1 priority. So what we have been doing, and something that I bring to the table, is in relation to public-private partnerships. In my introduction, it was mentioned that I was the executive director of Live Green. This was an example of a public-private partnership which addressed a very specific issue related to stormwater in the city of Lancaster, bringing private resources to the table, matching that with public dollars to get planning efforts and implementation efforts underway. And so now we see green infrastructure improvements happening in the city that has resulted in national recognition. Another example is our work with the Lancaster City Alliance in developing the Building on Strengths plan. This is, again, another example of a public-private partnership that is moving the city forward to address how do we build out from the success of our downtown into our neighborhoods and into our corridors like Manor Street, South Duke, New Holland, Pike, and so on. These are the kinds of things that we have to continue to do because we will always be tasked to do more with less.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next question. Start with you, Kevin. Remarks in earlier candidate forums suggest it's difficult to start a new business in the city. Do you agree? And if so, what would you do to change this?
So when it comes to new business startups and the challenges, what we've heard in previous forums, and I've heard a lot in homes and meet and greets and others, is part of the difficulty has to do with a lack of understanding. The city's not terribly clear. If you go on the website, there's a lot of dead links, there's a lot of old data that's not always kept up to date. If you call, which office do you call, and how do you ask which questions? One of the things that I've been doing for the last decade in Lancaster is I've been working with organizations on the Board of Assets. I work the Community First Fund. These are organizations, and this is where Janine's right, the public-private partnership is important. These are organizations who already do the work of helping to train individuals on how to do the business part of starting a business. The part that the city needs to do a much better job about is saying, okay, you want to start a business, and your business includes real estate, your business includes equipment, your business includes employment. So these are all of the permits, these are all of the processes that you're going to go through from beginning to end, so that you can actually appropriately plan for how do you fund your business, how do you think about all of your costs of your startup. And what we have right now is you show up at the door and you say, okay, I'm going to purchase a building. You say, oh, great, okay, well, this is what you'll need to do. And then you come and say, I'm going to renovate a building. Oh, great, this is what you're going to need to do. Each of those steps having permits that you didn't foresee, increasing your costs and putting you into a financial burden where it's very difficult for you to start. So a lot of my expertise actually ends up being around business consulting, business training for-profit, small entrepreneurship. So that's an area that I feel really excited about.
Thank you. Janine?
Well, it's hard to start a business for lots of reasons. You have to be jack of all trades. You have to secure financing. You have to have your business plan down. You have to do marketing, inventory, sales, HR function, all of it. And as small business owners, I agree, we can do more and better to provide those services. But let's be clear, small businesses are strong in Lancaster City. There are hundreds of them. They have been recently mapped in two ways, both in looking at the Southeast Lancaster as well as through the Building on Strengths plan. As we did our inventory and talked with small business owners about what we can be doing more, better, different. So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is our CRIZ program, which is the City Revitalization Improvement Zone. And what I'm most passionate about is not what CRIZ has done thus far, which has been significant in supporting program investments like the Conestoga Plaza on South Duke Street and other larger projects, But what I'm most interested in is how Chris is going to support small businesses moving forward. So there has been a task force that has been created, led by Ray D'Agostino, who is the chairman of the board of the authority, the Chris Authority, to take a look at how we are making strides at providing the kind of technical assistance and support to bring into the fold small businesses to benefit from this opportunity, which doesn't take taxpayer money out of city residents to businesses, but keeps taxes that would otherwise go to Harrisburg in our community to provide that kind of economic development.
Thank you, Norman.
You know, I'm running for office because the city is not doing anything perfect. We are better off today than we were 20 years ago, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. And when it comes to the small businesses, the city has to recognize that small businesses are the economic engine of the city of Lancaster. We open business day in and day out. And for the past 5-10 years, we have 200 new businesses in the city of Lancaster. However, if you go to the small business owners, they know that they don't have a partner right now in City Hall. And they need to, we need to address that issue. One of the things that we are proposing in this listening tour that we have been embarking all over the city is to create the mayor task force on small business development. Let's look at what is going on at the local, state, and national level in order for us to strengthen the business culture that we have, the small business culture that we have in the city of Lancaster. And we also have to look at where the businesses are opening and who are opening those businesses. Because in a city as diverse as ours, it is important to recognize that diversity is our strength. And every time we have small businesses opening doors and they don't look like they are not the reflection of the city residents, it is a great concern for many of us. And we have to understand that the small business community does better when we have more small business development going on in every single quadrant of the city of Lancaster. We have invested $1.5 billion in Lancaster City. Most of that money stayed in the downtown area. How can we sustain the downtown area for the next 10, 20 years if we don't strengthen the neighborhoods? And by opening small businesses in those areas, we will be able to sustain the amazing downtown center that we have in Lancaster City today.
Thank you very much for this next question. We'll start with you, Deneen. It's a bit longer. Regarding the recently announced closing of the Reservoir Street giant grocery store, does the city have a responsibility to ensure that residents have convenient, affordable access to food? What is the appropriate role for the city to play when a business like Giant is considering closing? And now that they have decided to close, what is the appropriate role for the city to play with regard to the future use of the real estate?
Thank you. So yes, the city does have a responsibility to ensure that residents have access to fresh, affordable food. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn here, we are unanimous in our concern about the impact of the closing of Giant. It is very easy for those of us who have automobiles and who are able to drive to kind of be flippant about this. Well, you can just get in your car and drive down to the other Giant in Columbia Avenue. Well, that is not the case for many of the residents that live in this neighborhood. And their ability to walk, to buy groceries is very important to the continued livability of being a city resident. So yes, we do have a responsibility. As it relates to the appropriate role I believe of city government is to facilitate action. And we're doing that behind the scenes in reaching out to potential developers, working with Giant and contacting the representatives that are making these decisions to ensure that there is no preclusion in the lease agreement that would not allow another grocery store to come in and take that space. And so that is very important. That is, the advocacy effort is very focused on that. They have made the decision to leave, and now we need to make sure that we can get another grocery store in that space. The other thing that we're working on is to try to keep them open through the transition so that there isn't a gap in individual residents' ability to get fresh and affordable food. So this is very much an effort that is happening, and I call on all of you, if this is a concern, we need to continue to keep up the rallying cry to make sure to continue to put public pressure on Giant to do the right thing, to do the right thing. And so if you're nodding your head yes, please make sure that you make a phone call, and you can go on my Facebook page to get the number.
Thank you, Norman.
You know, I think even the three of us, when we are Democratic candidates for mayor, we don't agree in almost anything. But if there's something that we agree on, it's in this. You know, Giants, it is a moral issue for us to be involved. You know, and I applaud the effort of the councilwoman and city council members in the city of Lancaster, because when we have city residents going to city council last week, and they were crying and asking for help, they committed themselves to do something about it. Now, before we do anything from the city, we have to be data-driven, we have to be research-based, and we have to be policy-driven as well. So before going into applying to any of the funding that the state might provide, or to ask for any other organization or business like Giant to come to the city, we need to make sure that we are not bringing a high-end supermarket to an area that is poor. So we have to provide affordable food for those individuals in the city of Lancaster. It's not only about bringing a new business in, it's about doing things morally right. And that's where we can create a level of concern all over the city of Lancaster to make sure that if we're going to bring anything new, it has to be in the best interest of the residents in that area, not in the best interest of the business that is coming in.
Thank you. Kevin?
Yeah, I want to just continue what Norman was saying about the business practices. We want to make sure that I agree, the Giant is a problem, but I also want to pinpoint some other things about that Giant and how it may not, if we could keep it, be the actual answer. I went down, was invited to a protest that was happening, and so I decided to go and stand with the residents. And I talked with this woman who was one of the people who reached out to the Giant Corporation in the 70s that helped bring them there. She was saying, please, it has to stay. It used to be an empty lot my kids would play in, and there was nothing good for the community. Across the street was another young woman, and she was shouting, Giant can go for all I care. I thought that was interesting, so I walked across the street and I met with her. She was the daughter of the woman who had said Giant should stay. She was the girl who was playing in the street. And I said to her, I said, why are you and your mom so different? She said, you gotta understand, Giant was my first job. She said, I've shopped at Giant most of my life. She said, I grew up 2 blocks from here. And I said, well, then it seems to me like it would be something important to you. She said, it would if I didn't also know that on the first of the month, Giant jacks its prices up because they know people are getting their food stamp benefits. That Giant does things with their employment practices to make sure that people don't have full-time benefits. So we also have to be thinking proactively. And so I applaud City Council as Norman does, but I do want to put one little criticism. If you have a director of economic development whose job is to be doing urban planning, why for the last 20 years didn't we say we only have one grocery store that's walkable in the city? Why weren't we courting ahead of time so that when Giant left, we wouldn't be replacing the only grocery store, we would be replacing the second grocery store. So we wouldn't have to beg them to fill the gap for us because we dropped the ball thinking ahead of time. So that's the difference moving forward is, for me, I've always been a proactive thinker instead of a reactive one.
Thank you. And our final question, we'll start with you, Norman. Are you concerned about the prospect of reduced federal and state funds for Lancaster and corresponding negative impacts on the city budget and finances? And if so, what is your plan for addressing this?
You know, I think that we all are very concerned with the political dynamics that are happening at the state and at the national level. And it will have an impact not only in cities like Lancaster, it will have impact in cities all across the Commonwealth. And especially for us, I think that for everyone in Lancaster County and all across the 222 corridor, it has to be a great deal of concern. Because if we don't do well in Reading, in Lancaster, in Allentown, in Bethlehem, in Lebanon, in York, and in Harrisburg, it will have a direct impact in the economic prosperity of the entire Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And one of the things that we are looking at is to make sure that we continue opening small businesses, that we develop the edges of the city. So we become more independent from government, and we are particularly more interested in being a city that can be sustainable by itself, rather than waiting for Washington, D.C. to deliver the CDBG checked every year. And one way that, that I applaud the mayor for the work that they have been doing in the past 12 years is that when the mayor came to office, we didn't have the economic stability that we have today. And that has to be applauded by Mayor Gray. And now the city of Lancaster is standing up and is standing safe because of that decision made by the mayor. But with the current situation that we have in Washington, D.C., you and I, as an Lancastrian, we have to be really concerned because at the end of the day, it will impact schools, it will impact hospitals, it will impact every single social service agency that we have in the city and in the county of Lancaster, and we need to work together to make sure that we have a passport to that neglect that is going to come from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Kevin.
I agree with Norman in the sense that we have concerns about regionality, and we already have these concerns. My parents live outside of Camp Hill now, and Harrisburg struggles, and I worry about how that impacts us. Part of the way that impacts us, you've heard mentions of poverty, you've heard mentions of homelessness. Well, those individuals who are in distress will move to areas that can sustain them. So if those areas are not going to be successful, and if county areas don't have the affordable housing options for those individuals, we'll see an influx in the city. So we need to make sure we're partnering regionally. And I think there's another telling piece of data that I'm concerned about. This past week, it was announced that there's a $530 million shortfall from expectation on taxes. And first of all, someone's head should be rolling in the state if you got that expectation number wrong. But the fact is, we've got a job and wage crisis going across this entire state. And so we need to think, how do we change that dynamic? And I think Eugene D. Pasquale suggested marijuana. You have to put everything on the table. I'm going to suggest something a little bit more traditional. When I was in college, I studied theater. There's a lot of states and regions where they become hubs for films. They have certain credits and incentives. And that brings a lot of jobs that are all the way top and down on the wage scale. The grip who holds the lights is getting paid a good union job that's being funded by a Hollywood network that has a lot of money. In Lancaster City, we've had films before. We had Girl Interrupted over at the Chestnut Hill Cafe. We've had movies like Witness and others in the county. When those things happen, why did we not turn and say, how do we get more of you? You bring millions of dollars into our economy. You bring jobs that are temporary right now because you're coming for one film. How do we make sure that that grip buys a house in Lancaster City? Because that person knows that there will be jobs coming again and again and again.
Thank you, Denise.
So there's been a lot of thinking about this, but I've actually been doing it for the last 4 years as finance chair. It's not a prospect of reduced funding, it's a reality. 10 years ago, the state was contributing our full minimum municipal obligation to pensions, and now that's less than 50%. The CDBG funding, the Community Development Block Grant, which is the federal funding that we receive, let's be clear, it's less than $2 million. We're going to fight for it because we need every bit of money that we can get. But I want to make sure that everybody understands we're not bankrolling the city from state and federal sources of funds. What pays for city services, the city services that you rely on in your businesses or in your homes every day for water, sewer, police, and fire protection, as well as street improvements and park improvements. And we are stretched so thin. So I just want to be clear that city residents, and I'll echo a point that was made earlier too, 30% of properties in the city don't pay any taxes. We have been aggressive in reaching out to those nonprofits and encouraging and cajoling them to make a payment in lieu of taxes, because that helps keep those services operating that everyone depends on, whether or not they have a nonprofit designation or if they're county government. I would like to see our county government make a contribution of payment in lieu of taxes. This is what keeps our city going, is taxes, and fundamentally brings us back to a problem that sits at the doorstep of Harrisburg every single year, which is property tax reform. We cannot continue to fund municipal services, all of them, police, fire, everything, as well as public education on property taxes. It's an upside-down system. It really hurts low-income homeowners, particularly elderly people like my mom, who is living on her Social Security check and who struggles every year to make sure that she can pay those taxes.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all three of you for coming today. We're going to open up the questions now for Rotarians.
This question is for all three of you. The city under Mayor Gray built and provided and supported the Gallery Row on Prince Street. What is your approach to the growing development of the Arts District in Lancaster?
Just a point of clarification, Gallery Row and the art movement in the city of Lancaster began before the mayor. That began mainly under Charlie Smith, and then the mayor, because he has an amazing wife and first lady who is an amazing artist that we have. But one of the things, if you go to Gallery Row, and I hope that you as Rotarian agree with me, is that there is a lack of diversity. There's a huge lack of diversity when we go to the city of Lancaster and you don't see an African American gallery, you don't see a Latino gallery. 40% of the city's population are Latinos. The largest ethnic group in the city of Lancaster are Puerto Ricans, and you don't even have a Puerto Rican gallery in Gallery Row. You know, if we are in the business of making sure that politics is a vehicle to change people's lives and to be a fairer, kinder, and stronger world, we need to start by providing the opportunity for others to be represented. And one thing that we are proposing in my platform, in the One Lancaster plan, is to have the Mayor's Commission on the Arts, to make sure that if we are going to continue developing, because this is tourism. A lot of people come into the city on First Friday because we have the most amazing First Friday in the entire Commonwealth. But we have to be fair, calm, and kinder when it comes to the diversity in those areas.
I may as well stay up here.
Sure. Norman's right. There's a problem with diversity when it comes downtown. He is wrong about one thing. There was an African American gallery. I know because I underwrote the loan for it when I worked at the Community First Fund, and it was a challenge. I will certainly agree with that part. It was a challenge because people also didn't support it. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we want there, and what are we willing to support? And then as government, it's about how do we support that. One way that I think you have an entry into creating diversity, because you need to have people understanding maybe a different type of art, a different art form, is inviting people into spaces that are already welcome. I'm a poet, and I've had opportunity to read in some of these gallery spaces, and that's been an opportunity for people to hear a different kind or a different theme of poetry than they normally would have. And so there's a space downtown right now called Fruition Collective, which is a collective of individuals, diverse individuals trying to provide and bring that diversity. We've had a free concert, we had another event there. So finding ways of supporting those new initiatives and branching out further than what you've done before. The other part is I was honored, and I served with Deneen on the Public Art Master Plan, which she was part of allowing me to be a part of it. I'm grateful for. And she chairs the public art. So, but anyway, so in that process, one of the things that we talked about that was great was public art also has infrastructure investment. So when you're putting a big, ugly internet box, can you design that in a way that becomes something attractive and playful? So I think using infrastructure and public art dollars to help boost one another is a really important key to that.
So, as Kevin mentioned, I co-chaired the strategic planning process for the Public Art Advisory Board, and I want to just say that the Gallery Row and the investment in Gallery Row was private money, and there was a developer that came in and purchased those buildings, renovated them, and branded them as Gallery Row, and that was in partnership with the city. But it is that kind of private investment and that creating of an enabling environment to support that kind of private investment that city government can do best. In relation to public arts, I want us to move beyond the idea that public arts is a gallery where you go in and buy paintings. Art is around us in lots of different ways, and we experience art in lots of different ways. And that art has been integrated into our public parks very purposefully throughout every quadrant of our city. Martin Luther King pool renovation now includes this beautiful fence that is of paper cutting, of children playing. And that was in partnership with students at the Martin Luther King Elementary School. And so it's really about fostering that vibrancy across our city and not thinking about it as fixed in a particular place where you're going in and there's a financial transaction, but making public art accessible to people in all parts of our city that's reflective of the amazing diversity of our city and the stories that residents have and can bring forward as part of what makes the fabric of Lancaster City, to me, so rich and vibrant.
Thank you very much for coming. I'm a resident of downtown Lancaster. What would you like to see happen in Lancaster Square? And that's for each of you.
Well, not a parking garage. That I'm adamant about. We have the boulevard coming in and it's supposed to spur an economic development, and then to immediately take CRIZ money and build a parking garage in the space where you have empty shops seems sort of crazy to me. The first thing I would say is that before we even figure out what we're going to do, can we rip out the rubber and put in grass? It's stark when you walk down the street and you see all these people enjoying their time in Vince Park, and across the way you see this just desolate memory of the past we all want to forget. What I would like personally to see somewhere in the city, and I think this might be a space for it, is some form of public performance space. Like Loans Park has their amphitheater, we should have a space that's permanently set like that. If you do it in that space, and I've, in my previous life as working in economic development, we had a conversation, and my suggestion was, why don't you put a raised platform there that can be used as a theater space, and there's ways of designing it, but also can be used as outdoor seating, attractive outdoor seating for restaurants and shops that would come in there, or even be around the corners. So that it's a multi-use space, but not in the sense of like the old multi-use, multi-purpose church rooms with the accordions. It has to be attractive and inviting, but it should be something that can both support further investment and doesn't distract from the possibility.
So I'm so excited to see the Boulevard building and that space just be totally reimagined. And it is part of like every plan that I've seen, even the public arts plan, the building on strengths plan, everything has something in it about the Boulevard building and that space. And I think when Kevin's describing, a lot of that infrastructure exists. There is a stage platform and so on right across the street in Binns Park. But what I'm really interested in is creating a process for public engagement so that we can envision what we want that space to look like that is going to be a benefit and a draw for the entirety of our community to come downtown. It is really interesting to me that there are, interesting and sad that there are people who, when I was describing where we're going to be tomorrow night at the Ware Center, a resident did not know where that was, had not been on Prince Street in years. And if there isn't something that's bringing you downtown as a resident, then you're missing out on some of the things that are so vibrant. My favorite event downtown is Celebrate Lancaster, because every part of our city is represented. And that evening, there are people from every neighborhood that come downtown for that night. It's not that case on First Friday. So I want to see Lancaster Square cultivated and developed into something that is going to bring our community together as a downtown should, and not just for folks who are coming in for First Friday. We love you. Keep coming. Keep, coming, dine, and participate in our rich culture and arts. And at the same time, I want to make sure that we're bringing folks in, and I think that we have this amazing opportunity to do that.
You know, there's no city ordinance that require for any new developer, whether they are just building 1 unit or 20 units, to build the parking spaces for those new buildings coming into the city. And I think that is not right, because we have the proposal of the parking space right beside the Bolova, because we don't have a city ordinance requesting the builders to have the parking spaces, and then that is solely the responsibility of the city of Lancaster and the parking authority. Now, for that space, that is beautiful. And I come from very, very humble beginnings, and when I announced my campaign, I said, we're gonna be bold, and we're gonna dream big, because the city of Lancaster needs to dream big. And one thing that we are proposing for that area, if many of you go to Orlando, Florida, for example, and you go to Universal City Walk, and you see fake palm trees and beautiful buildings, and you see an amazing array of diverse small businesses opening everywhere. Why can't we dream big in the city of Lancaster and picture just something similar to that right there in that area of the city, that if you are driving in the city of Lancaster today and you come from South Queen Street and you see the convention center, amazing. It is just like listening to music. You are listening to some good salsa music in South Queen Street, go all the way and pass Penn Square, and you keep listening to music, and it's the beautiful, Isaac's building and everything else, but then once you cross the Bolova building, the music is gone, because it's dark and it's ugly. I think that we need to create that sense of vibrancy in Lancaster City, and it shouldn't be a parking lot, but something of the nature of, once again, go back to Universal City Walk, and I believe that we can do something similar in the city of Lancaster that will create jobs, that will open businesses, and that will help even our very young kids that will otherwise will not have the resources to go down to Orlando.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question starting with Doreen, and that is, we have a big empty building called Southern Market Center. The city's done an RFP process in the last couple of years. It doesn't seem like it's really produced much in terms of good prospects for it. So my question to you is, has that been a good process to fill the building? And if not, what would you like to see there, and what would you do to get that there? How would you fill it, and what would you do about it?
Yeah, so the RFP process did not yield the results that we were hoping for, that's to be sure, with one exception. There is currently efforts that are underway now to reimagine that space in partnership with Assets of Lancaster. And I'm actually not sure how much detail has been provided publicly. I'm looking to an Assets board member. Mr. Ressler's on the Assets board and can share about that. But I sat down and met with Jessica King, who is the executive director. And what we are imagining, envisioning for Southern Market Center is to think about how we can use that space as an incubator for new businesses and entrepreneurs in a creative making space. And this is essential in terms of thinking about how we can move the boundary of economic development further south on Queen Street, and Southern Market Center is certainly part of that. We're also thinking bigger about, the Swan Hotel, which is across the street, as well as what's going to happen with Lancaster newspapers. I think the challenge in a lot of this is financial, for sure, and thinking about how we can structure a purchase of the property for Southern Market Center, in which we as a city can be patient in terms of the repayment of the purchase of that, while also generating more economic development in that area of the city. So there are things that are happening that are behind the scenes, and Mr. Russell will talk more. How's that?
Yeah, I'll just go next to see Simon. I've had two conversations with Assets, and I'll be very brief about them. One is as a board member, and the other is as a potential, as the Meals on Wheels director, potential sort of client of that. So there's a consultant who's been hired, and it's still in the process. They're supposed to present very shortly, I believe, next month. The idea that has been kicked around, as Deneen suggested, is an incubator space that could potentially be a variety of things. But for instance, it could be sort of like a food court of sorts for food vendors of different cultures, or immigrants, refugees, people who go through like an Assets training. But it also could be a production facility in the back for sending out franchise, like if a franchise existed. Think Isaac's, right? So at some point you were making the pickles, right? So there's all these different restaurants. Maybe they can go and they can have a production facility. In the front would be a restaurant or a retail space. So there's a lot of stuff dreaming around entrepreneurial aspects in food. As Meals on Wheels director, one of the things that I've suggested is, I'm looking for a new building presently for Meals on Wheels, because we've outgrown our space, and it's very difficult for me to find a space to rent, and I would prefer to rent purely based on, as a community member, I don't want to be another tax exempt property in the city or in the county, because it's just not helpful, and we presently rent. So it's already built into our financial structure. I would love for us to be able to have that space be available for a lot of these nonprofits that own tax exempt property to move in, office space, other things, so that they can sell those properties so they can get back on the tax rolls. And the city's still collecting money because they're collecting the rent revenue, so it's not completely zero in the way some government buildings are. So that would be my idea.
You know, I would just add that as long as it is a community cultural center in which it is all about serving the community in that area, and it becomes the gateway to the south of the city, with the opportunities for small businesses to grow and expand, and to have a beautifying area in that area of the city, I would go all for it. Now, something that I will also be very protective of is to make sure that we do not lose the historic preservation of that building, because that is a building that reflects the identity of who we are. You know, not only the Lancaster of 200 years ago, but the Lancaster of today and the Lancaster of the future. So we have to have a historic preservation agenda to make sure that whatever comes in, it doesn't touch that historic preservation of that building.
And on that, I should say I'm against selling it. I actually don't think the city should sell that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.